All right. Hello and welcome to week 9 of the 13-week fiscal program for American Prisoners of War. You have myself, Chief Biko. Also, we have Chief Alligator and Chief Quietwater. And here's always, we focus more so on that first letter in the acronym APOW, which is American. Before we get started today, we will go ahead and definitely have to give honor to the late, great Tina Turner, as well as Jim Brown, but definitely Tina Turner. It's brought to our attention. I forget who it was. I believe it was KJ that sent something to our email that pretty much just showed who Tina Turner is, which is American. Before we get started within our readings, definitely wanted to show that video and just let you all hear it from her mouth as well as her mother's mouth.
Can't hear anything, Chief Biko.
Yeah. Let me see. Stop sharing real quick and reshare. Let me see, it might be my head.
Shout out to the bill last night as well. We were on Copper Empress channel. We had another great bill, adding on to what we didn't get a chance to finish up on Sinetta TV. How you looking on your end, Chief Biko?
Should be good. Let me try now.
No. Can you hear Chief Quietwater? Can you hear the video?
No, I can't.
All right. What did you take from that presentation last night, Chief Quietwater, while Chief Biko gets everything situated on his end?
I thought it was a good build as well. I think, again, just being able to get the information out there on larger platforms and, you know, seeing more people speaking the language and, you know, just showing that they kind of understand and it's not going over their head. But yeah, I definitely think it was a good build. And we just have to continue to keep putting the message out there, keep putting the information out there.
Absolutely. And anybody who finds congressional acts or law that came through Congress that's to the contrary, feel free to send it via email or attach it to the comment section of any one of these videos. We love to see proof of claim showing otherwise. You think you got it, Chief Biko?
Yeah, we're gonna try one more time. Can y'all hear me?
Yep. Started from the beginning.
Let me see.
Still nothing. It's not playing.
We share the Lyndon B. Johnson video. So this is how we share the Lyndon B. Johnson video. I'm not sure what's going on with the audio. Let's see.
All right, while you getting that video squared away, you want to see it for the play?
Let me see if this will play.
Even while President Johnson talked to Chancellor Klaus about America's responsibility in a time of crisis and challenge, word came from Capitol Hill that Congress had passed and sent to the White House.
Is that one being heard?
Yeah, we can hear that one.
Interesting.
Check your volume on the video, the little speaker. Okay.
Yes, let me see.
I think my mother said Cherokee, and it's been a long time, you know. I don't know which one it was. She says, I don't even know if she remembers really, but
Cherokee and Navajo. My father was Navajo and my mother was Cherokee.
we had this particular table that we sat at each night that we were there, and the drummer wanted me to sing, and I wasn't a singer. Well, in fact, I was bashful as well as now. And so I gave her the mic and she began singing.
I said, would you rather sing than to be a nurse? She said, yes. Tell me what's wrong.
If you can bring that back,
When
right?
all the other
Cherokee, and if you can just bring it back to that portion of the video. What did she say? Cherokee and Navajo is what her mom said Tina Turner was?
Correct, correct.
Yeah, we'll just do it one more time since we had a little, you got it on mute.
What did the lady did in the movie?
I think my mother said Cherokee, and it's been a long time. You know, I don't know which one it was. She says I don't even know if she remembers really. But
Cherokee and Navajo. My father was Navajo and my mother was Cherokee.
Okay, we can
you had this
right
particular
there.
table.
So Tina Turner was in her 80s. So that would have been, that could be a little bit older than my father, but we can see the reason why we wanted to first pay homage to Tina Turner. Secondly, we wanted to show that the forgotten group of people of our lineage is that group of people who were full adults in the 1960s. Here you see this woman's mother telling you she's Cherokee and Navajo. So the generation that has been dumbed down or bamboozled is the kids born in the 70s and beyond. We're the ones going into these fictional make-believe classifications where everybody from my grandparents going back, they knew who they were. And I'm gonna add this in before I get y'all input on it. I really believe because TV wasn't in everybody's houses back then, people listened to radio from my grandparents' generation. So my generation up until now, it's normal now that everybody has a TV, everybody got a computer, and most people got smartphones. So these companies can pretty much throw out there any kind of propaganda that they want the masses to assimilate to. It wasn't like that. It was more de jour back when my grandparents were living. So I'm gonna stop right there on that and let y'all build on the fact that Tina Turner was Cherokee and Navajo based on what her mother said.
Yeah, I think it's important. Well, like you said, I think, you know, back then had information been as easily accessible, I definitely think we would have been able to progress so much more because people would have been more been able to get this information out of knowing who they were and, you know, verbally saying it, like, you know, they knew who they were, you know, rather now throughout all of these years, all of this information has been suppressed and people are just now waking up. And it's just hard for people to understand, you know, the fact that we were the ones that were here. And, you know, I definitely think that the information being accessible now rather than not being accessible then has a lot to do with how we are just asleep at this point. But we're waking up slowly but surely.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think, well, pretty much what I took away was just her mother's conviction and how she immediately knew who she was, both sides as well. Mother Cherokee, father Navajo. Wasn't no stumbling, wasn't any second guessing in how she said it. Going back to both of you all's points, she knew exactly who she was and made sure to pass that down to her daughters and, you know, so forth and so on. And again, someone that looks like us, like this could be one of our parents or grandparents, and nobody would have guessed or second guessed saying, oh no, you're African-American. Like you stated, this time we're living in now with all of the tools and all of these media outlets that we have. So all of this information being bombarded just causing a lot of confusion. So back then, definitely more simpler and able to actually go to who was raising you, your family, to ask, you know, exactly who you were. So that's what I took away from that. And again, just another example of an American who created some great things and pretty much created a great legacy in Tina Turner. So definitely rest easy, Miss Turner, and we'll go ahead and continue to build.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually say that we're actually dumber now. And I think that's due to we honor degrees more so than our lineage. That's the last thing I'll add on this, where she knew who she was coming out of, I think she came out of Tennessee. Listening to this video, I believe Tina Turner was raised in Tennessee. But even you could see as a grown woman, probably in her 30s or 40s, when she was like, I don't know, I think my mama told me I'm Cherokee. I don't think she remembers. Somewhere in her life, that became not as important. And so my generation, your generation, and everybody beyond, that's the power of propaganda or media. Now we're no longer honoring what our family tree is. We're more concerned with what piece of paper did the European give us through their school structure. So the doctoral or the master's or the bachelor has more relevance to us in today's world than our bloodline.
And then maybe playing devil's advocate, was it just that because they knew who they were, that it wasn't a question of who they were, is why maybe it wasn't talked about? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because they just knew who they were. So what was the point back then of them having to just be so forthcoming with, this is who I am? Because they knew internally who exactly they were, if that makes sense.
I see what you're saying, where it wasn't even like those questions wasn't being asked to the parents, like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? As in, like you shared on Sonetta TV, you know, when your son asked you, like, do we come from slaves? Like, that probably wasn't a question that Tina Turner was asking her mother.
Right.
And was asking her mother. So I see what you're saying with that, you know. Like you said, I think, like you stated, Chief Alligator, we're dumber now, especially in regards to knowing who we are, where we come from, than they were, because again, we come from that offspring of just being in school from 5th grade, from 5 years old all the way to 18, versus probably Tina Turner, you know, maybe not even graduating high school or going to school for, you know, that long of a duration. So the ability to bombard them with this information to make them second guess themselves wasn't really that strong, I'll say.
And you got to keep in mind, it was segregation. It was military. It was intense military occupation. So the people who were schooling you looked like you. So that probably wasn't a topic either, like Chief Firewater was saying. They're not, well, damn, look, going back to, we're dumber now. Now you have people who look like us that are drilling in little kids' mind, you come from a slave ship. Back then, during segregation, I'm pretty sure them teachers was not talking nothing about slavery in the 40s, 50s, and 60s to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So shout out to Tina Turner, and definitely shout out to Jim Brown. Forgot about him, Chief Biko. Jim Brown plays an important role.
Mm-hmm.
Was one of the first American professional running backs. Remember, NFL was segregated. You know, how we forget, during our grandparents' age, the NFL was segregated. I think baseball was the first one to desegregate. This hat that I have on today, this is the Alabama Black Barons Negro Baseball League. I bought some of these hats yesterday. So when you see these 3 Bs on this hat, this was owned and operated by us. So, you know, amazing how we forget, you know, what we were owning and controlling. You know, how many of us knew Alabama had a professional Negro baseball team? Even in Atlanta right now, Atlanta won the World Series 2 years ago, but how many people know the original Negro or professional baseball team was the Atlanta Black Crackers? You see what I'm saying? Like, these are just things that gentrification, which is warfare, you know, our generation didn't know it. Our kids definitely won't know it. So it's up to us to go back and honor our grandparents and start digging into the files and figure out what were they doing? How were they living? They were independent based on the research that we're doing on this channel. It was segregated. They weren't asking and begging nobody for nothing. They were owning and operating, not being happy because they got a contract to go into other people's business structures. I'll stop right there. Y'all want to build on that.
Right. Make sure. I think that's a good stopping point, because definitely going to pick up on Dr. Carter G. Woodson's quote, and I think he talks about that greatly, as far as us actually not worrying about leadership and actually taking on actual tasks that's going to be more beneficial for the collective. So without further ado, we'll jump into this Lyndon B. Johnson's, we'll say, proclamation in regards to the Civil Rights Act of not only 1964, but 1965, as well as this 1968, also known as the Indian Rights Act.
The Civil Rights Act of 1968. Included in the measure was a landmark open housing bill, which, when fully effective, would forbid discrimination in approximately 80% of all housing offered for rent or for sale in the United States.
I do not exaggerate when I say that the proudest moments of my presidency have been times such as this, when I have signed into law the promises of a century. I shall never forget that it is more than 100 years ago when Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. But it was a proclamation. It was not a fact. And in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we affirmed through law that men equal under God are also equal when they seek a job, when they go to get a meal in a restaurant, or when they seek lodging for the night in any state in the Union. And now the Negro families no longer suffer the humiliation of being turned away because of their race. In the Civil Rights Act of 1965, we affirmed through law for every citizen in this land the most basic right of democracy, the right of a citizen to vote in an election in his country. In the 5 states where the act had its greater impact, Negro voter registration has already more than doubled. Now with this bill, the voice of justice speaks again. It proclaims that fair housing for all human beings who live in this country is now a part of the American way of life. We all know that the roots of injustice run deep, but violence cannot redress a solitary wrong or remedy a single unfairness. And we just must put our shoulders together and put a stop to both. The time is here. Action must be now.
Can you go back a couple of seconds and show Lyndon Baines Johnson standing in front of that podium with the people around him and just hit pause? Because Copper Empress was talking about this last night when she was talking about a stage play.
Mm-hmm.
She mentioned that where are the quote unquote Native Americans doing the signing of this 1968 Indian Rights Act? And I think that this is a perfect example of propaganda at its finest. I'm gonna pass it back to you, Chief Biko, but I just wanted to just get that still shot, because when we say in jurisprudence that the House of, based on their government, the House of Representatives have to vote, their Senate has to vote, and then it has to be given to the president and he signs it into law. That's what you're seeing right now that happened 7 days after the government assassinated Martin Luther King. What we said last night with Copper Empress, what we said on Sonetta TV, and what we're going to continue to say until somebody proves us wrong is show us a document that went through that procedure defining what Negro, Black, or colored or Afro-American is. We have yet to see it. But yet you heard this man even call us Negro through the media while standing up to do this act. Go ahead, Chief Biko.
No, that's excellent point and excellent questions that we still have not had an answer to. As you pretty much just pointed out, he'll mention Negro being, or the Negroes now being able to, frequent hotels and motels without being turned away. He'll mention how Negroes in 5 states, how the voter registration is now increased in those 5 states, and even mentioning now with the Fair Housing Act. But all of those documents, which he mentioned, none of those documents have the word Negro, Black, Colored, African American in them. So going back to what Copper Empress was building on yesterday, in particular, it's an act. This is all staged, and it's a reason why they call them acts in the first place, because, you know, you can have any type of actors playing these particular roles. Again, nothing is specified for the Negro, yet we'll teach or we'll put out the propaganda to make it seem like this is not only particular for the Negro, but that others can actually join as well through, you know, race, national origin, religion, or whatever type of category you may be able to find or put yourself in within these documents. But again, as far as him saying that the Negro now has this, is that really true? Because nothing is specifically saying the Negro in any of these documents. And I'll let you build on that, Chief Quietwater.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to know as well that is currently happening, another reclassification where they're just dumping us in the pot of people of color. You know, it's happening as we speak. And so if it's not, if it wasn't evident then, it should be even more evident now that, you know, pretty soon when you're filling out documents and things like that, it may not say Black, it's probably going to say people of color. But what does that people of color pot, you know, who's all included in that, you know? So I think that we just have to keep that in the front of our mind, that we're going through another reclassification as we speak currently.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
Chief Biko, and Chief Quietwater. This was 1968. So the government, the benefit we have as the generations that come after this is we can look back now because 2020 happened. So 1968, inner cities are burning down because our grandparents were burning down Detroit, burning down Chicago, burning down Harlem. So the United States government came out in an attempt through propaganda to make us calm down. So that's what our grandparents saw on TV, was Lyndon Baines Johnson supposedly giving us a Civil Rights Act after they killed King. So we got to put that in context and what we're watching when we see that video. King been dead 7 days, cities are burning down. What did they do in 2020 for us? You, Chief Biko, you, Chief Quietwater, and me, and Copper Empress. Right now, it's our turn to be middle-aged people or young adults. What did we see the government do in 2020? They showed the world a lynching of George Floyd. Out of nowhere comes a group called Antifa. What started out as us being in the streets, rioting, protesting, whooping people's asses, just all kind of video images were going on. It turned into a European on European fight because you ended up seeing Black Lives Matter, which is not us, and you saw Antifa. So you saw how they were able to take our energy, because initially we were protesting. Over a period of time, the people who look like us started saying, wait a minute, they're putting out bricks so you can bust the windows. No, that's not what we're about. And then it turned into white on white crime. For the last 2 years, it was white on white crime. Now, as of this week, they're telling you, oops, Black Lives Matter is insolvent, it's bankrupt. So all the resources that came from your lynching, they just told you 3 years later, you got no laws. Remember, you niggas wanted the George Floyd Act when you voted Biden in. Did you niggas forget that? You wanted protection from the police. You didn't get it. You wanted reparations. You didn't get it. You watched the Asians get an Asian hate bill within less than 30 days after a massacre of their people. So this is on us at this point. We can't really, yeah, we bring up the elders and we bring out those older people that sold us out, but this is on our watch. 2020 up until now is we are the adults watching the bullshit through TV. And now these same niggas are going to try to convince you why you need to go participate again and get nothing. Anything y'all want to say on that? I'm going to stop right now.
And it's crazy what we settle for. like you stated, we asked for a George Floyd Act, which is supposed to pretty much put a halt to police brutality, make all of those murders pretty much be federally investigated, so forth and so on. But we settle for symbolism by the NFL by having, you know, racism must end in the end zones. We'll settle for the NBA putting no justice, no peace on the back of niggas' jerseys. Wow.
Black Lives Matter
Black
painted
Lives
in the
Matter
middle of the
painted in the
street.
middle of the streets. Like, we'll settle for this shit that we have no control over, get no benefits from, no resources, but we'll say, oh, we appreciate that. We'll settle for, you know, these major companies investing or donating resources to these Black Lives Matter organizations, these urban league organizations, which again, how many of them have paid out any money or any type of funds or resources to help these families who have been had their family members killed by police or just some racist individual? Or how much money have you put up to bail out those individuals that were on those streets fighting during 2020? Nothing, because like you just stated, Black Lives Matter is now solvent bankrupt. So all of these resources, all of this symbolism that was being put in, what do we have to show for it 3 years later? Not a damn thing. But again, we'll see coming, probably starting September, early October. You got to get out there and vote. Vote to have the right to vote, which is the silliest shit ever, because you had the right to vote now, 64? So basically almost 60 plus years and still have nothing specific for your group of people. So is voting really the answer, or is stepping away and doing something different, creating your own shit, the answer? Because all they doing is feeding off our energy, and I'll let you bid on that there, Chief Quietwater.
And I also think another thing too, the families of these people who, you know, unfortunately have gotten killed by the police, they're going along with the narrative as well, in regards to supporting the Black Lives Matter, knowing that they're not getting anything out of it, and supporting the Ben Crumps and all of these civil rights active, you know, attorneys and things like that. So it's like, you know, at the end of the day, we're literally just taking the crumbs of what they're just willing to give us, if anything at all. So I just think that we just need to, we definitely need to separate ourselves from this whole establishment.
Absolutely. And as you know, Chief Copper Empress stated yesterday, all this shit is ours. So we shouldn't have to settle for anything, especially when you know this is ours. And as we always say, you know, show us a document where Negro, Black, Colored, African American is defined, and we're showing you a document where they actually list right here where it says definitions of Indian. Let me pull this back here, where they actually state that. So this is all we're asking from any scholar, any, you know, hell, these government officials. Where do you see where Black, Colored, African American, Negro is defined like they define it within this in this second title, Title 2 here? We don't see that. So if we don't see a definition of Negro, Black, Colored, or African American, what does that mean? That means it does not exist within this system. And as you stated yesterday, Chief Alligator, if we don't exist within this system, then how can a Black caucus exist within this system and supposedly represent us? It's a contradiction in itself. That should automatically tell you that that Black caucus does not represent us, because we are not even represented within this system itself. So this is the main point in which we are trying to nail down, trying to get everybody to understand in regards to this. This government has never recognized our group of people. And with that, did you want to say something else, Chief Alligator?
Nah, you good.
I was going to say with that, we'll jump into this week's readings. We'll start off with you there, Chief, with the Inventor.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen real quick. And today's Inventor will be Mr. Henry Brown. Let's see, can I make this a little bit bigger? It's not a lot of information. I'm noticing it's not a lot of information on a lot of these inventors the deeper we go into them. But Mr. Henry Brown, his federal patent number is 352036. The date of his patent was November 2nd, 1886, and he invented the desktop file box. So I'm sure anybody who has a office space in their house, I'm sure you have something similar to what Mr. Henry Brown invented. Mr. Brown invented a receptacle for storing and preserving papers. This was a strong box, fire safe, and accident safe container made of forged metal, which could be seated with a lock and key. It kept papers separate and was before the personal safe. So sometimes they will give us a Google patent. I can't really zoom in like I want to on this invention. Can you guys see it, or do I need to try to, let me see.
See if you can hit on your key, if you have a Alt plus sign or Control plus sign, actually. That should try to make your screen a little bigger. Control plus.
It's still not making it bigger.
Nah, okay, now it is. So try a little bit more.
There we go. All right.
Okay.
So
there you go.
All right. So this invention right here, I got a couple of questions just on this invention going back to our bill last night. How were the kings and queens in Europe storing papers if the inventor of Henry Brown invented and created as a scientist? Let me be clear. Everybody who's an inventor is a scientist. You have to master science to create something. So what were the kings and queens and the people in Africa, what were y'all storing documents in before Henry Brown? That's what came to my mind when I was looking up this invention today, because you had no way to store papers if it wasn't for Henry Brown. Anything y'all want to say briefly on that? And his family, as far as I can tell, they don't receive a percentage of income from this invention. So I want to circle back to what we were saying on Copper Empress last night. If we invented all of these things, why are those families not receiving 100% of the income from the world that purchases their ancestors' invention? That's what we're saying. We can't look at ourselves as owners. Everybody should be paying us a tax on this land. If you really understand that you're from this land, like it says in the Iroquois Confederacy Constitution, yeah, you can come over here and you can be a part of a tribe, but you'll never have a vote in a tribe. So once our form of government was dismantled, we let them set up a government and they've alienated us through documentation. Ain't that a bitch? You help them create Articles of Confederacy in the United States government. They in turn turned around. Well, no, I'm lying. They did add us, because the only group of people that's in their constitution is the Indian not tax. Part of the problem is you got a group of people that are claiming to be us, but they've got a misnomer name themselves, which is Native American. But when you start to uncover that shallow grave and look at all the records that come out of this land, you start to realize all those people look like us. I'm gonna go back one page off this invention, and let you see what Mr. Henry Brown looks like. And he looks just like Tina Turner's mom, Tina Turner, and every other inventor that we've pulled up. We've yet to see an Asian looking Mongoloid invent something supposedly in their land. See if it'll let me pull up the image. Let me try it one more time. Anything y'all want to say while I'm trying to pull that up?
Yeah, just bringing up the fact, like you said, how did they come here and didn't know how to do anything? You know, they had to get it from us, you know, everything that, and we've been able to prove, like I mentioned last night, that we haven't repeated inventions. We haven't repeated inventions.
You're real choppy, Chief Quietwater.
Okay. Can you hear me okay now?
Hold on 1 second. You're real choppy. I thought I had the image here, so it looks like it's not going to be able to show the image. Let me go back one. All right, see if you
Can you guys hear me now?
okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, but just the fact, I mean, again, just make it make sense. You know, how do we have all of these patents and inventions, but we were slaves and didn't know, you know, what we were doing. So I mean, it's very simple.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I'd agree. And just to see that, you know, he basically had a fire proof or fire safe filing, like you said, pretty much what is it, folder, not even a folder, but compartment that
Mhm.
people still use today. I know my mom has something like that with important
Mhm.
files in it. So just to see that that was something invented by an American is, you know, is eye-opening. That's something I
Right,
did not
right.
know, you know, something that I
And it's the
see.
basic things too. It's the
Exactly.
basic things that have definitely developed into things that we need in order to
Absolutely.
operate in everyday life.
Absolutely. Whether it's that, whether it's a mailbox, whether
Mhm.
it's, you know, a stop sign or a stoplight,
Right.
you
And
know.
that just goes to show you they had brilliant minds.
Absolutely.
We have brilliant minds, rather.
And as Copper Empress stated yesterday, we do have these brilliant minds because we are the creators of civilization. Like
Mhm.
they're coming up with things to say, okay, how can we progress? How can we make this more
Right.
efficient? How can we make this easier for our lives, for our civilization? So I think that was just another good example of that.
Right.
I'll go ahead and jump into this week's Dr. Carter G. Woodson quote. And I was stuck between either 1 or 4, but I think I'm gonna go with 4 this week. And quote 4 reads, if the Negro could abandon the idea of leadership and instead stimulate a large number of the race to take up definite tasks and sacrifice their time and energy in doing these efficiently, the race might accomplish something. The race needs workers, not leaders. Such workers will solve the problems which race leaders talk about and raise money to enable them to talk more and more about it. I think this is very key, and it's still relevant today, especially when we go in regards to like your religious leaders or your nonprofit organizations such as Black Lives Matter that continue to talk about the issues at hand, but don't create any constructive plans for the group, and no tasks are actually being worked at on a
Yeah.
large scale. As we, you know, especially beginning of our channel, listen those 13 steps or however
Right.
many steps we would list. Hey, looking to see who your family is. You know, go to these nonprofit organizations, see what their position is on reparations. You know, there is no money. Start going ahead and transferring this fiat currency, this dollar, to the actual money, which is silver and gold. You know, no steps like that have been mentioned, or I have not heard anything like that from any religious leader, any nonprofit organization leader that's supposed to be for our group. So I think this is very key for us. And again, this is just something that we've shown ourselves to do, what people in the chat have shown themselves to do. A lot of people within this community, I'd say, is be able to, you know, sacrifice their time, their energy
Right.
to whether it's, you know, an hour or 16 hours or however long it may be, but just being able to carve out a select, you know, time throughout your day to say, okay, let me go ahead and do something constructive that's going to benefit not only myself, but my people as well.
And it just allows us to progress, you know, in time, you know, like we have to just bite at this one bite at a time. You know, nothing is going to change overnight, but if we collectively on a larger scale can, you know, like you said, just kind of take some time to just move the needle forward. And the more and more people that get on the same accord with doing that, we can get much further in a shorter period of time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If you can go back, yeah, that quote, I would say we have to, the protest unfortunately has to start from within first. Understanding that media is propaganda, the first thing that they like to do is say, he's a civil rights leader or he's a Black leader. I think no, ain't no think to it. People have to start denouncing when these people who look like us on media throw that word leader around. Because I think it's safe to say when we're watching TV, we don't know who the fuck these people are, but they will introduce them as such and such, and they'll ramble off his organizations, right? He'll have about 5 or 6 different nonprofit organizations, and then they'll say he's a leader in the community. Wait a minute, right? This is where the people have to say, no, who are you? Who put you in front of us, and who told you that you're going to be the leader? That's one thing. The second point, this came to me when y'all were building. Do you notice how they always handpick people out of college to quote unquote be leaders? And the reason why that's a problem is because if we go back to the 1960s, that's who the Black Panthers were. That's MLK, John Lewis, all these were 18, 19, 20-year-olds. The problem with that is you haven't lived long enough. You haven't done enough in real life. You understand what I'm saying? It's like some kind of weird way, because you go to an HBCU, you're supposed to be a leader by default. We're not gonna look at your resume and see what you actually have a skill set in. What have you actually done? What have you actually built? And that's another hindrance to us, is that your leader doesn't have to come out of an HBCU. What's y'all thoughts on that? That we we're on this hamster wheel, if you will, using that analogy, like Copper Empress said. At some point, you got to get your ass off the hamster wheel. Stop letting them throw these young people, probably not even independent on their own, but they got ideas for how the whole group is gonna survive.
Mm-hmm. No, I'd agree. And I think it's meant to be that way. Meant to be, handpicked or chosen that way you can shape them into what you want them to be, versus having, somebody who has that life experience, whether, they went to some, college, university or not, they understand exactly what is going on. I would say, taking the example between a Malcolm X or Dr. King, one coming from or being in prison and changing his life around, studying to show himself approved, versus another going to school, college, also studying to show himself approved, but taking 2 different paths. And kind of even goes back to another Dr. Carter G. Woodson quote, people are given 2 educators, one which is given and one which he gives himself. And pretty much everybody knows that the one which you give yourself is by far the more desirable. So even in that quote itself is showing that, hey, life experience is the best teacher, versus you trying to, be studious or, studying and things like that, but you don't actually have that real world experience.
In my opinion, I think that it's people like us, just everyday people who just tired, and willing to put in whatever work it takes to get something accomplished, as a group of people. So I think that it needs to be someone definitely with life experience, and also people who want to see change and not looking for something on the back end in return for it.
Definitely agree with that. And even going back to what we read in, the Iroquois Confederacy Constitution, they clearly defined that, hey, we can't have some, young cat, somebody that's incompetent, somebody that, is not all the way there trying to, be a leader.
Right.
Even if we take an example from, this government, you have to be at least 35 years old to run for president. So you have to show yourself approved, but also have a certain maturity about yourself. That way you can have that life experience to say, okay, I know what I would have did at 25 versus what I would do now at 35, and so forth and so on. So I think that's just just being in alignment with nature, I would say.
Absolutely.
Shoot, I'll let you go with the legal definitions, then we'll jump into these readings.
Okay, legal definitions. Number 1, American, indigenous to America. Number 2, descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. Number 3, slavery, a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. Number 4, prisoner of war, a person, usually a soldier, who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. Number 5, school, an institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. Number 6, education, an enlightening experience. Number 7, recovery, a return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength, the action of process of regaining possession of something stolen or lost. Okay, maroon historical points. Number 1, was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law. Number 2, providing unity and a strong defense came first. Number 3, maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. Number 4, maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. And number 5, maroons knew their European enemies' language, defenses, and plans.
Perfect. And I believe on last week, left off on page 34, subsection F, effective trial of civil actions on administrative proceedings.
Okay.
I'll let you go ahead and.
Okay, so section F, effect of trial of civil action on administrative proceedings. An administrative law judge may not continue administrative proceedings under this section regarding any alleged discriminatory housing practice after the beginning of the trial of a civil action commenced by the aggrieved party under an act of Congress or state law seeking relief with respect to the discriminatory housing practice. Okay, effective trial. So basically, it's just saying that if they have already started the process under Congress or state law, then the administrative law judge can't continue any proceedings.
Yeah, if it seems like if there's already something in action, then the administrative looks like they'll have to halt whatever they're doing in regards to that civil action that has already taken place.
Okay.
Or is
So
taking place.
The Congress and the state law would supersede. Okay. G, hearings, findings, and conclusions in order. 1, the administrative law judge shall commence the hearing under this section no later than 120 days following the issuance of the charge, unless it is impracticable to do so. If the administrative law judge is unable to commence the hearing within 120 days after the issuance of the charge, the administrative law judge shall notify the secretary, the aggrieved person on whose behalf the charge was filed, and the respondent in writing of the reasons for not doing so. So this is just procedure, basically. Number 2, the administrative law judge shall make findings of fact and conclusions of law within 60 days after the end of the hearing under this section, unless it is impracticable to do so. If the administrative law judge is unable to make findings of fact and conclusions of law within such period, or any succeeding 60-day period thereafter, the administrative judge shall notify the secretary, the aggrieved person on whose behalf the charge was filed, and the respondent in writing of the reasons for not doing so. So basically, they have 60 days to make conclusions and findings of facts. And if not, they have to inform the parties. Number 3, if the administrative law judge finds that a respondent has engaged or is about to engage in a discriminatory housing practice, such administrative law judge shall promptly issue an order for such relief as may be appropriate, which may include actual damages suffered by the aggrieved person, an injunction, or other equitable relief. Such order may vindicate the public interest, assess a civil penalty against the respondent. A, in an amount not exceeding $10,000 if the respondent has not been adjudged to have committed any prior discriminatory housing practices.
Before you go to that next page, hold on. You, in that paragraph, can you highlight real quick, Chief Biko, where it says, finding of fact under section 2. Okay. That's all we doing over here. Finding of fact. Anybody who's ever been to court for any kind of situation based on your case, they're going to give you a conclusion. When they give you your case closes, you're going to hear what the finding of the facts were. Based on the finding of the facts, when we look at American history and its United States government's history on this land known as North America, we're challenging all public servants, all constitutional scholars, all scholars, everyday people who think otherwise than what we're showing based on fact. Provide the facts from this government where Negro, Black, and colored went through jurisprudence procedure and was signed by the president into law and defined as such. I just wanted to highlight that because that's all we're doing. We're fact finding. We're pulling up government public records and we're just doing a real history class based on what this government really did. Not some author who wrote a book and came up with his own appeal to sell his book. No, we want to know what the records from the government has done to us. I just wanted to interject that.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Okay. B, in an amount not exceeding $25,000 if the respondent has been adjudged to have committed one other discriminatory housing practice during the 5-year period ending on the date of the filing of this charge. And C, in an amount not exceeding $50,000 if the respondent has adjudged to have committed 2 or more discriminatory housing practices during the 7-year period ending on the date of the filing charge, except that if the acts constituting the discriminatory housing practices that it is the object of the charge are committed by the same natural person who has been previously adjudged to have committed acts constituting a discriminatory housing practice, then the civil penalty set forth in subparagraphs B and C may be imposed without regard to the period of time within which a subsequent discriminatory housing practice occurred. So basically, the more time after let me see, the filing, the more the fines will be in regards to the periods like 5 years and 7 years.
Mm-hmm. So if they catch you, or if you've already been, ruled upon for having committed, one or more discriminatory acts, then your penalty won't exceed 50,000 unless you are a natural person. Then that's pretty much thrown out the window. So it seems like they're giving the protection to those persons, which we know can be a corporation, organization, pretty much anything. But if it's a natural person, then those time frames are pretty much thrown out the window. So it doesn't matter how long. If you have 2 or more, then we're going to go ahead and they're saying they're going to come down hard pretty much on them.
Okay.
Right. And I'm just thinking about what happened with that owner of the what's that basketball team? We mentioned this a couple of weeks back. What was that owner's name that got caught?
Donald Sterling.
Yeah, Donald Sterling, or Donald Trump for that matter. These people who became wealthy in the real estate world during this period, once they put these laws in place with housing, it's a kickback game. I mean, you're never going to get to file these charges. Those charges will be suppressed, right? Because if you take care of that secretary, because everybody has to report to the secretary, right? And I think Copper Empress was talking about that yesterday, how it comes up under HUD or the Housing Authority. So the secretary is orchestrating this whole department. So even this administrative law judge has to correspond with the secretary, right? So the way the big boys play it is it's a kickback game. If I break off the secretary or I break off that administrative law judge, then I never have to worry about building a discrimination file against myself.
Makes sense. I'd rather pay you the 50K versus, you filing it. Now I have 17, complaints and stuff. So I just pay that secretary or whoever is going to be in that position. Okay. Let's see, I'll pick up here. What did we leave off in 4? Okay. So number 4, no such order shall affect any contract, sale, encumbrance, or lease consummated before the issuance of such order, and involving a bona fide purchaser, encompasser, or tenant without actual notice of the charge filed under this title. Number 5, in the case of an order with respect to a discriminatory housing practice that occurred in the course of a business subject to a licensing or regulation by a governmental agency, the secretary shall not later than 30 days after the date of the issuance of such order, or if such order is judicially reviewed 30 days after such order is in substance affirmed upon such review. A, sends copies of the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the order to the governmental agencies and recommend to that governmental agency appropriate disciplinary action, including where appropriate, the suspension or revocation of the license of the respondent. So here is just showing pretty much, again, penalties for their findings in these discriminatory filings. Again, showing that findings of fact, which, as Chief Alligator stated, is exactly what we're doing. Look, bringing up these documents, showing exactly what they say and how they do not reference anything in regards to our particular group of people. And then they'll come up with their judgments upon these fact findings, whether that be a suspension, a revocation of their license, or anything that would be basically appropriate.
Right, but we got to make this make sense, because right now, to somebody who's listening, it just sounds like a bunch of reading, right? So how do we make this make sense and make this, what Chief Quietwater and what you're reading, come alive? This is no different than niggas today going to court. The average nigga, and I'm using the word nigga because I'm saying as a group of people, we're the most ignorant group. That's why we're losing financially. We're ignorant to law. Doesn't mean the law has to be legit, but we're still ignorant to the way things are done. The average nigga, when he talks about court or any kind of proceeding or procedure that has to be done, what's the first thing he'll say? Man, I don't know what them folks down there talking about, man. You know, man, don't go down there with them people, man. The people gonna have you fucked up.
Yeah.
Why am I saying that? Take it back to 1968. How many of our people knew this procedure if they were going to be discriminated on? Remember, we're being integrated into a system at this moment. You didn't have the rule book prior to now. Now
Right.
They're giving you the rule book and saying, okay, we're going to desegregate, we're going to allow you to vote, and we're going to allow you housing. Here's the rule book, niggas, have at it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is a lot of people lost land and lost property because they didn't know this. They didn't have the information age where they could just use their internet and go directly to a government website. No, they would have had to physically go there. And then you got to pay the clerk to get papers. Anybody who's done old school research, when you go to these buildings, you got to pay them for copies.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to, so I just wanted to add that in to make it make sense. We can read and not make it come alive, and somebody listening can be like, man, why are they just reading all of this? We're reading this because these are the rules to the game.
Correct.
So you wonder why you lose in life, because you don't want to take time to read and understand theory of operation. All this is theory of operation. You want to keep property, you want to know why your family lost property or why your people got evicted or kicked out or whatever, because these Europeans were able to come back and say, oh, ignorance of the law is no excuse. We've already got it written down.
Right. These are just, like you said, rules, regulations, or the procedure to follow if you want to file for any type of discriminatory action when it comes to housing practice. Plain and simple as that. And as you stated, going back to our people at this time, 1968, just saw Lyndon B. Johnson saying now the Negro has the right to frequent hotels and these different now public places, which again would be a library, but you still have these same people that have that mentality. They're like, nah, I don't want you in my library, or this is ours.
Right.
So if you're going to this clerk, yeah, you have to pay them, but that doesn't mean that they're willing to give you this information in the first place for you to even make copies. You see what I'm saying? So even trying to get this information would be a hard task for those people, let alone trying to read and comprehend what the hell is being said within these documents.
And I think even more now with information just being so readily available and being that it's not really hard to find this information. We online anyways, on social media and things of that nature, and people spend so much time on things that just don't make sense. you know, the information is here. The information is here for us to just get into these think tanks with other like-minded people to understand how the system is working against us and understanding how to get away from it and separate ourselves from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll continue here on number 6. In the case of an order against a respondent against whom another order was issued within the preceding 5 years under this section, the Secretary shall send a copy of each such order to the Attorney General. If the administrative law judge finds that the respondent has not engaged or is not about to engage in a discriminatory housing practice, as the case may be, such administrative law judge shall enter an order dismissing the charge. The Secretary shall make public disclosure of each such dismissal. So, making this come all back full circle, going back to what Chief Alligator stated, say a Negro was able to go to your local public library, pay that clerk was nice enough to give them documents. They understood what they saw within those documents, made copies. Now they're going through this process of filing a discriminatory housing practice. And it states here that, what does it say here? That if they give this to, let me just read that. In case of an order against a respondent against whom another order was issued within the preceding 5 years, under this section, the Secretary shall send a copy of each of these to the Attorney General. So they'll send this copy to the Attorney General, and now that administrative judge can now have has the power to either say, okay, this ain't really discriminatory and dismiss it, or actually say, okay, we can actually do something with this and push this forward. But again, we're seeing a pretty much escape clause in this section 7, where now this administrative law judge has the power to, again, push your case forward or just dismiss it, and the Secretary just notes it as a dismissal. So we can see how, okay, yeah, you have this process, but at the end of the day, who's running this process? Again, not our group of people.
And what's most your family members saying, if you just make it even just simple? When you start talking about doing anything above normal, most niggas will be like, man, don't go down there, man. I ain't got time to be going down there dealing with them people. And that kind of mindset is what hurts us, because somebody got to go through that valley of death and then come back to the people and be like, hey, this is my experience. This is how it works. This is what we can do next time. But most of us won't engage.
Mm-hmm.
We won't engage with the system. And I believe spiritually, we don't engage because we know it's bullshit. But even if it's bullshit, like we've been exposing, you still got to go into it and find the bullshit so you can come back to your people and be like, look, here's bullshit here, here's bullshit here, here's bullshit here. So we can't beat the game without playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
You can't beat it without playing it.
And I think another good point of that is, like you said, going through the system, going through the game so you can highlight the bullshit and bring that back to your people, because it seems like we still have those individuals that, although we know this system is bullshit, still somehow have faith in the system because they're voting within this system.
Well,
and
Copper
voluntarily doing that.
Yeah, Copper Emperor, I didn't mean to cut your bill. Copper Emperor said something yesterday that a lot of people probably didn't catch. She said she hasn't paid taxes in 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Soon as she said that, I knew she know what I know. What am I saying? Everybody in your family is not going to go through the procedure to understand the game so you can beat the game. What she said was, we'll rely on the preacher and won't he do it? Our problem, you let a preacher who don't know this procedure, he'll just tell you to pray about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But faith without works is dead. You got to do the work, then pray. Niggas, let me say that again. You got to do the work first, then you pray. You don't pray to hope that you're going to understand this procedure that we're reading. You got to do the work. And that's where they got us right now. They got us in a perpetual entertainment cycle. We just want to be entertained, feel good, hear some good music, see somebody fall out and do the inchworm on the floor, and then we'll put a little fiat in the basket, and then we going right back into our delusional state of being. I'm going to start right there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that's exactly what we're doing too. You know, with us and the different platforms, we are going through this process and pointing out, you know, where we've went left. And, you know, we let this narrative get us in the state of where we're at now. So, and we are bringing it back to our people and, you know, with like-minded people trying to decipher this stuff to know how we can, because we're understanding it now, going through this process that we've been going through for the last 2 years, over 2 years. So we're breaking it down and understanding it a little bit more so that we can go back to our people. And then from there, we can, you know, come up with a plan to just kind of get all on the same accord, basically.
Correct. Correct. And yeah, just being able to, like you stated, understand these procedures, understand multiple procedures. That way we aren't, you know, hoping, praying, or, you know, wishing upon a star that something will change, when we can actually just understand the system and change shit ourselves. So no, that's a great point. And definitely something that Copper Empress did highlight yesterday. I'll probably read these next two sections and then we'll come to a stopping point, since we're almost close to that hour mark. H here. Review by Secretary, service of final order. The Secretary may review any finding, conclusion, or order issued under subsection G. Such review shall be completed not later than 30 days after the finding, conclusion, or order is so issued. Otherwise, the finding, conclusion, or order becomes final. The Secretary shall cause the findings of fact and conclusion of law made with respect to any final order for relief under this section, together with a copy of such order, to be served on each aggrieved person and each respondent in the proceeding. Judicial review. Any party aggrieved by a final order for relief under this section, granted or denying in whole or in part the relief sought, may obtain a review of such order under Chapter 158 of Title 28 United States Code. Notwithstanding such chapter, revenue of the proceeding shall be in the judicial circuit in which the discriminatory housing practice is alleged to have occurred, and filing of the petition for the review may be not later than 30 days after the order is entered. So again, right here is just showing exactly what each of these departments, or what will be taking place as far as the judicial review and secretary review as well. And another thing Copper Empress brought up yesterday, just in regards to, you know, these courts just basically being a money grab, is what is basically stated here. Revenue of the proceeding shall be in the judicial circuit. So again, just highlighting the bullshit. And as stated earlier, just bringing this back to the people to pinpoint this bullshit, and so we can understand this and actually make a game plan to remove ourselves from it. Anybody kind of want to break or build off of that?
Yeah, it's venue, not revenue. Scroll back
Venue
up.
facts, correct.
Venue. And so from my experience, having gone through court proceedings before, and I'm speaking from just people that I've known over my lifespan, most niggas don't have their life in order enough to go through a court proceeding. You notice how you see 30 days, 120 days. When you decide to go through a court proceeding, your life has to be in somewhat kind of an order, because you have to do certain work and then physically go down to that building and file. Most men that I know that, and a lot of it is dealing with children, right? Or it can be something other than that. But most of us tap out in this process because our lives are not in order. This goes back to real leadership. We had councils. So we had leaders, we had advisors, right? Right now, we have a do for self type mentality where everybody's going to kind of go for self. You can't beat a team by yourself. That's one of our biggest hindrance, is everybody there are certain things you have to do on your own, and then collectively we have to come together on certain things and be that counsel so that you can guide the next generation. Let me say it like this is the way I was taught. There has to be a group of elders that are going to advise you while you're doing the work. So while you're actually going down doing the work and you run across certain situations, there has to be somebody you can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I did this, and they responded with da 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 da. There has to be a group of people to let you know, okay, from my experience, this, that, and the third. Our problem, we're not moving as a group. We may be moving individually, we may be moving in small pockets, but I'm talking about as a group. This group that got misclassified in 1968 during the Indian Civil Rights Act. We haven't moved in 60 years because there's no council of elders that are telling Generation X and the millennial generation, do this, do that, do this. It's been dumbed down because the lack of knowledge and understanding from the people they're putting in front of us. They just want you to burn energy when the system fucks you. Just go out and march about it and protest. Nobody's really giving you the science of this is why you're losing. What we're doing over here is giving our people the science of this is why the government is fucking us. You've never been written into the government. Let's cut through all the bullshit. We ain't trying to sell you nothing. We coming straight up the middle with it. Go ahead, Chief Wildwater.
Yeah, and I think that also they instilled fear, like you're supposed to fear the system. And I think it's more so with the our men as well, which are supposed to be the leaders or whatever. I think that fear has hindered us from learning this system because we're not reading it, we're not comprehending it, and we're just being told by their actions that, hey, it's not for you. By their actions, they're showing you that it's not for you, but also people that look like us have this fear of the system that they try to impose on us as a group of people as well.
Definitely agree. Definitely agree with that sentiment and that statement. Yeah, I think it's been propped up, especially among our group, government being the boogeyman. But when we actually read the documents, read how it's supposed to actually work, and we can identify the flaws, then it's like, okay, this is what we're supposed to be fearing this whole time. So it almost kind of like it's the yellow brick road with what's the darn movie where basically the man behind the curtain was just a man. Like,
Yeah,
you're afraid of the Wizard of Oz. You're afraid of this big, voice, this big face, this eye in the sky, when actually all of this is just a feeble old man pressing buttons because he doesn't even know how his own system works, or his own system is flawed. And that's all this is. And that's all we're pretty much exposing, as stated earlier, just facts and conclusions. What do the actual documents say? And holding that side by side with what the media, what propaganda, what these books, what these teachers, what this education system is saying. And it's not equaling out.
Yep. And all we got to do is look at, let me ask you this question. Chief Biko, when you were in high school, did you take civics?
I'm trying to think, did I take civics? I think we did have a U.S. government. I know in college, it was a U.S. government class I took.
Not U.S. government, civics.
Civics, no. It's nah. Only thing we had was social studies, and that was, I think, elementary and middle school, but nothing as far as civics.
Okay, that's the problem. And that shows the war that's being waged against us. When they took civics out of high school, when you get to commencement, or what they call graduation, graduation, the European word is commencement. That means the beginning, right? Most of us that walk that stage don't even know that's what it means. When you look on that document, that should say commencement. Commencement means now your shit starts. How are you going to start when you don't even know civics? Think about that, y'all. If they took civics out of high school, you don't know where to go to get shit done. And that's exactly where they want you. But here's to show you how beautiful our minds are. You can play what's your favorite video game, Chief Biko?
Should probably be 2K.
NBA 2K?
Mm-hmm.
You good with it? You play online?
I ain't played in about 3 years. I'm probably trash now.
Okay.
I was good.
Okay, so what I like to compare with the younger generation is, you know how you know your PlayStation or you know your Xbox or whatever gaming system you're using, and you know how to make a player score 30 points or your favorite team, or you know the whole science of how to win that game. That's what civics is. It's a game. And if you're never taught how this thing is laid out, how this thing is structured, when they're talking about venues, it's circuits. When you're talking about court systems, it's a circuit. The government is a circuit. So you do have to have an understanding of electricity. You do have to understand certain things can't be done in certain venues. But if they took that out of basic education for the Negro or the Black or the colored or Afro-American, they never have to worry about you. Now we're to the point, maybe 30 years of no civics being taught in school? We've been reduced to marching and protesting. It makes sense because you don't know how to get remedy through their system. 60 years should not go by before somebody reads the 1968 Civil Rights Act. So now we're at a point where the European is like, we're tired of seeing these niggas in the street marching and protesting. Even these immigrants are tired of seeing us marching and protesting, but that's all we can do because we don't know civics. That's how you can have a Black caucus hiding off in the cut, doing nothing for you. They're not being egged on a daily basis. They're comfortable. Why? They know niggas don't know nothing. That's why they sending the National Guard out now when you protest, because the world is like, if these niggas ain't gonna get in line with jurisprudence and understand how government works, let's get rid of them. So we're at a point in society right now where we're being flooded out. We're being flooded out because the world, we had a moment in 2020. The world was willing to listen to us in 2020. We went back to sleep. But I just wanted to add that in, man, civics. And if I could learn it, anybody listening to this video can learn how this shit works. We got to get out of the habit of throwing temper tantrums. That's all a march and a protest is. You don't like what's going on, so you're going to go out there and you're going to temper tantrum. And they're going to allow you to do so for X amount of hours. They're going to tell you, go take your ass back home, and then nothing changes. And then somebody else gets killed. And then you go throw a temper tantrum, and then somebody else gets killed, and then you throw a temper tantrum. Then you hear another owner of a major league sporting team disrespect you, and you throw a temper tantrum, and you keep giving them your money. And it's almost like, if we're tired of it, what you think other groups of people are? And I think Copper Empress said this last night. They about ready to just start coming to niggas' doors and just hauling niggas. It's sad for me to say that because I'm a part of this group and I could get misclassified, you know what I'm saying? Because I have the skin, I have the complexion, you know what I'm saying, of this group that's being waged war upon. But my motto is, you coming with me. You know, I've already planned my death years ago, so I'm not living in fear. Motherfucker coming with me. You come with the bullshit, you coming with me. Fuck your costume. But I don't want to get off track. Civics, not knowing how shit works is why we stuck in this state. Anything y'all want to say on that, Chief Quietwater, Chief Biko?
I think that pretty much sums it up. Honestly, I don't have anything else to say. Yeah, we just have a lack of knowledge. We got to get on track with this information and understand where we stand within this government. So that's about all I have to say.
I would agree. I think everything you said was facts. Not knowing how this system works, not knowing our position within this system. Basically, like you said, circuits, being technical with this to understand, okay, if this happens, or if this is my, or if this has been brought upon me, I need to go this way to get remedy. We have no idea. So we just, like a hamster on that wheel, like you said, complaining, get off when we're tired, something happens again, jump back on that wheel, keep running, get tired, so forth and so on, because we don't know what to do in this system. Going back to the analogy, we just don't know how to play this game. We got the controller, we got the the council got all the video games, but when it comes to that manual or understanding how the system works, how we supposed to, what buttons to press to get what action, have no idea. So it's just something we just have to do, take upon ourselves, again, as Dr. Carter G. Woodson would say, and be the more desirable educator, which is the self-educator, if we really truly want to better ourselves in our predicament. Shoot, that's all I got for today. Any closing remarks from you all?
Yeah, I'll just say we've been reduced to a point now, especially since 2020, you're actually telling your kids how they should behave if they get pulled over in a traffic stop so they won't get killed. And you think that's okay. You don't see how shot out that is. No other group of people have to sit their kids down and say, keep your hand on the steering wheel if you get pulled. If you've told your kid this, think about what you're telling your kid. They get pulled over for a traffic stop, and you've actually probably had a conversation with all these murders of us on video over the last 7-8 years. You're telling your kid how to behave in a traffic stop so that he won't get shot and lose his life. And you think that's normal now, but you're not thinking about the trauma you're causing that child. That child is going to go around his other teenage friends and be like, man, what the fuck is going on? Like Billy don't have this problem. You know what I'm saying? Abdullah don't have this problem. Why is it that and then don't forget, you're the hero to the youth. If you're an adult, the youth look up to us. You wonder why they don't have respect for us. Look at what we're telling them to do. Just something to think about. We've been reduced to being killed on video, and then instead of stopping it, we're going to tell our kids how to possibly behave so that it doesn't happen to them. That's programming. That's programming. Show it to you enough through video, month after month, year after year, from Trayvon Martin to now. Now we don't even really march or protest anymore. We've accepted the reality that people with sirens on their cars can kill you for an air freshener, can kill you if you got a gun license. People can walk in your house. Oops, I'm in the wrong house. You eating ice cream, blow your brains out. People can kick the wrong door in with a bogus search warrant from a judge, Breonna Taylor. People can get killed jogging through a neighborhood, Ahmaud Arbery, blow your whole chest out with a shotgun. I mean, we done seen so many different ways of murder, and we try to stuff it and have the nerve to tell ourselves, violence is not an option. Protecting ourselves is not an option. We still want to do anything but put that on the table, but they've killed you every way possible. Up until recently in New York, just an everyday white man just choke a homeless guy out on the subway station on video. And they raised $2 million in 7 days for his lawyer fees. So we passed cops killing us now. Now you got everyday people, and he's been on the news all this week. Major news outlets, they are advocating for this man that he should not be found guilty because he choked a man out on video. And in their minds, they're saying he's a useless eater. He was a homeless man. My mom and daddy told me, if you ain't got a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out, you ain't no competition. So be careful with that word homeless, because if you let them get by with this murder on video because he was homeless, you better think about your family member that may be living with family. You see what I'm saying? Technically, they're homeless. They don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out. So we're programmed at this point. I don't know what it's going to take to trigger us again. I don't think we can personally come back from George Floyd. I think after watching a 9-minute lynching and nothing changed at the federal government level for this group of people, and the fact that we sat down and got okay with that, I don't know if we can, what would have to happen for us to get back engaged with self-preservation, which is the first law of nature. Before we can get anywhere else, we first got to value our kids and our lives and our elders' lives enough to say, this is law. First, we can't even get there. It's not enough
Yeah, I
of us.
think we definitely dropped the ball with with the George Floyd, I just don't think that we should have let up off of that, because it was an energy in that moment that we did have. And I think that we just let that time go by, not saying that we will never get that energy back, but that was a perfect time for us to just stand up and say no more, you know. But now so many other killings and things like that have happened. Like you said, with the one in New York, that was a everyday person that just killed another everyday person. And it's, you know, has basically gotten away with it. So I don't know. We just got to wake up.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it would take. I think it just has to be, again, constantly in our face, like how it was when Trump was in office. Every day, something on the news, whether it was, you know, Trump calling NFL players sons of bitches or whatever it was, but maybe that's what is needed to have folks wake up and say, okay, yeah, this shit is ridiculous. Because I'm not sure what else it would take. Like you said, we have regular citizens killing our group of people and are being called heroes. I'm not sure what else you can where you can go from there as far as, you know, our group, but yeah, I think it just has to be, again, blatant in our face without any pull punches for us to, again, kind of wake up. Kind of like the analogy you always use. We have folks just swinging on us, but they're not telling us they fighting us. I think with Trump in office, he was letting you know he don't give a fuck. And we want all the smoke. So now it's like, okay, I see they now we can go ahead and defend ourselves. So maybe that's what's needed, but not quite sure. Not quite sure.
Let's do one last thing before we close it out. Let's put the cherry on top. Can you pull up that 11-year-old that got shot by the police this week? Again, we're so desensitized to it at this point. You know, we just want to show you this because everybody that's listening to this video and that's in the chat right now, we know the routine by now of what's going to happen. Police officer shot this 11-year-old boy in the chest in Mississippi. What's the first thing that's going to happen, y'all? The police is going to do an internal investigation. Come on, how many? We know the script by now. Copper Empress said it last night. It's a script. It's the same script. They don't deviate. Oops, one of our officers shot an 11. I want y'all to look at this boy, because when I'm telling you that the youth have no respect for us, is because this boy is in the 5th or 6th grade at 11 years old. His mama told him to call the police because she was arguing with her boyfriend. Now that little boy got shot in the chest by Mississippi police. Now he's got to look at his group of people who he thinks are his supermen and superwomen, his mama, his daddy, his auntie, his uncle, his grandparents, his friends' parents, and he just know y'all got my back. And in the reality, as adults, we can all say we not gonna have his back. What are we gonna do after they say they're gonna do the internal investigation? Your local organizer, he's not a leader, he's an organizer. He gets that 911 call when one of these rogue Europeans fuck up. How does that work? We're talking jurisprudence. They call that local pastor or something like that. Hey man, we got a little situation. We need you to keep your prisoners of war in line in your district. Go ahead and let them burn off some steam. We're gonna go ahead and don't worry about paying for a permit or anything like that. Have them come down to 5th Street and 4th Ave, and we'll block off about 5 hours. You know, bring your you can bring your bullhorns and everything, and we'll let you guys walk for about 4 or 5 hours. Now I'm gonna let you know something. If they try to stay longer than 4 or 5 hours, I'm gonna have my National Guard on standby, and I'm gonna have my police militarized, ready to come out there and shut it down. That's what's going on behind the scenes. And we've seen this since Trayvon Martin over and over and over and over again. So this goes back to the bill we did on Copper Empress. If we don't value our own lives or our kids' lives, what makes us think that we're going to move forward and do anything as a group? We're out of natural order. We'll close on this subject right here, but anything y'all want to say on that? I mean, we already know the routine. Internal investigation, suspend the officer with pay, and then call the media and tell them, all right, take it out the headlines now, because we're getting a little too rowdy down here. And then as soon as you take it out of our faces so that we don't see it every day on social media or TV, we go back to sleep to the next murder. Go ahead, Chief Quietwater.
I mean, we have this one that just recently happened, and then there's other ones that just don't even make mainstream news. So it's definitely have gotten worse, because there's murders and killings by the police officers that that's not even talked about at all or even acknowledged. So that's something that people have to think about as well, is that it's happening more and more. It's just these situations, some of them are hidden mainstream to give you a glimpse, just a fraction of what's really going on that we don't hear about. So I don't understand why we don't get it and why it's not clicking, that they're literally just murdering us, lynching us. I don't know. I really just don't know.
Yeah, and I'll say again, just another example of what we continue to see every fiscal quarter, with whether it be one of ours getting shot, killed, choked to death, doesn't matter. Still been 2 months since, Tyree Nichols and the video dropped, and still nothing from that. So as you stated earlier, Chief Alligator, once it's out of, the public eye, we'll continue to go about our day, continue to live our lives until the next one occurs. And, after that has fizzled down, there'll be another one. So at some point, it has to click for our group to say, okay, what the fuck is really going on? And to actually be willing to fight for our survival. Because obviously there's an attack on our group of people in particular. And it's been showed or displayed every fiscal quarter.
Yep, and that cop is going to say he feared for his life. Looking at this child, if this child ran up on me for any reason on earth, nothing will cross my mind that I'm fearing for my life. So this is where we are now. It started with our teenagers, with Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin, and now it's been reduced to elementary school kids. There's nothing that a grown man can say that has on a gun and a badge to say that this little boy, when he's the one that's on the 911 call, calling for you to come to his house, that you shot this boy in the chest for what? He's going to say he feared for his life. So that's where we at. We'll close it out right there. But for those of us that, want to put their head in the sand and act like these aren't Arab kids who run these gas stations. You don't see 11-year-old Arabs getting shot. You don't see 11-year-old Asian kids when you go get your nails done and go buy your seafood and your soul food in whatever city you living in. You don't see their 11-year-olds getting shot. The only kids that's getting shot is those that have never been defined by Congress in law through this government. Y'all have a good night.